everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of TVG Talk. My name is Paco Triviño, and today I'm joined by Lauro Chapa.
Hey guys.
And so today we'll be discussing very personal topics about underrated games. The games that we feel are great, that should be well-known classics, but for one reason or another, they've declined into obscurity. Whether it's a dying platform, or simply bad timing, or a bad business decision somewhere down the line. So I think that this is a very interesting topic, and I think that you guys have had some experiences like this. So let us know in the comments below what some of your underrated gems are. So Lauro, I'd like to ask you, which is one of the underrated games that you'd like to talk about today?
Well, maybe I didn't thought of it at all as much underrated, but somewhat appreciated and not talked about enough. Because I do think that most of the games I put people really like, but not many people have played or known about. My first pick is going to be Pac-Man World. This game I played on the PlayStation 1 back in the day when it came out, and I thought it was as good as, Crash at the time, or even Mario 64 or Banjo and Donkey Kong. I don't see a lot of people talking about this game on the internet and when making, the best platformers lists. I really think that it made some interesting things and some interesting translations from what the Pac-Man games and how it came to be a platformer. So yeah, I really think people should play this game more.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Pac-Man World, I think that it's a trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty good games. I haven't played the third one, but I have played the second one, and I have to agree with you that they are really good games. I would compare them more so to something like Crash Bandicoot because they are mostly linear.
Sure.
I mean, there's like some pathing or some like variation, but mostly linear. I really liked them. I do remember that. And yeah, like you're saying, people aren't talking about them anymore. I mean, I've seen some, like, it has its niche, but maybe it deserves a bit more recognition. Have you played the recent Pac-Man platformers? The Ghostly Adventure ones?
No, I haven't.
I don't think too greatly of the level design. The gameplay reminded me a lot of that.
Right.
It's a very interesting series, and because Pac-Man platformers have existed for a very long time. Have you played Pac-Land?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had a long history of Pac-Man platformers, just for whatever reason, they have never quite caught on.
Yeah, not really. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, my first pick is... Now, this game is pretty popular, I'd say. It came out last year. It's in one of the most successful consoles of all time, but I feel that it's overshadowed by some of the games that came out during that same time frame, and I'm talking about ARMS. ARMS was pretty much doomed from the get-go. It came out the week of E3 last year. Nobody's talking about the games that are coming out at that moment. They're talking about the games that are coming out on winter or next year. And with games like Splatoon 2 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I'd say that it didn't stand a chance. But if you gave this game a chance, it has great multiplayer, single Joy-Con experience, all that. It has pretty good online, I'd say. Some matches can be rough, especially when you're playing 4 players, but 1v1 seems to be quite alright. It has some variety with V-Vol and, the little side games. Received a lot of support. We got a lot of free DLC for that game, both in stages and characters. So they were definitely building it up. It's still constantly patched because they still have little events for it, little tournaments. But in terms of new content, I think it's done. But that makes it more of a steal, I'd say, like more of a tempting purchase because it has more characters and more stages than it had at launch. Yeah, ARMS is a game that I definitely think more people should give a chance, and it's readily available in one of the most popular systems right now.
I mean, yeah, I get where you come from saying that not a lot of people played this game, but I don't know if I would really call it underrated or something, because, it's still the 7th most sold game on the Switch, and I know that the gap between, ARMS and Mario Kart 8 is pretty big, but for a new IP, I don't think it really did that bad.
No, it didn't do bad, but only when I'm comparing it to Mario Kart 8 or Splatoon 2 or Ultra Street Fighter 2. I'm seeing where, when compared, or Pokken Tag Tournament, Pokken Tournament Deluxe. I'm thinking about other games.
It's the best sold fighting game on the Switch. It sold more than Pokken and Ultra Street Fighter 2.
Then I have my numbers all wrong. But well, Pokken is still a re-release, so I definitely see why it
Yeah,
would outsell Pokken.
right.
But I feel like Arms, and it's also been on the market for a bit longer. But I feel like
Yeah,
Arms did a huge role for its audience, like bringing new content and everything. And I feel like barely
yeah,
people talk about it online. I mean, like,
yeah. It's been pretty forgotten.
yeah, and I think that's a lot of where I feel the underappreciation comes in. Where guys, don't
Hmm.
forget this great family or multiplayer fighting game came out. I mean, I don't know. That's
Right.
how I feel about it. Anyway, what's
Yeah.
your next game in the bill?
My next game, I think it's the maybe the one that least belongs in my list. I really don't know if people like. I've seen like the two sides of the coin for this game. Some people love it, some people hate it. Talking about Super Mario Brothers 2, the American Super Mario Brothers 2.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I know some people really don't like this game because it's like completely different from Mario Brothers and Mario Brothers 3 and Mario Bros. World and whatnot. And I don't see it being mentioned a lot. That's why I put it in here. And I think it's a really interesting game. Like, it changes the whole dynamic on just jumping on enemies to kill them, and it introduces some like weird, almost Zelda-like mechanics where you travel to other worlds by going into doors and discovering things on the other worlds. And um, it's also, it has multiple characters that have different abilities that maybe suit you better. And then that idea was later taken to other games like New Super Mario Brothers and New Super Mario Brothers U and 3D Land and whatnot. So I think that this game in the series is underappreciated and more people should check it out.
I totally agree with you that, even if the game is really famous, a lot of people underappreciate it and underrate it because how different it is. And there's also the stigma of, oh, they gave it to us because they thought little of us silly Americans that couldn't play the real Super Mario Brothers 2. So there's all that, but all that being said, I've beaten Super Mario the last levels like, I don't know, 3 months ago. I remember that I sent you the image when I beat it because I was like, Jesus, this game is insanely difficult. I did not have a great time by the end of it. Like, it was cool to beat maybe once or twice in your life, but the game looks the same as the original. It doesn't have anything new. It's a lot harder. So when you look at the American Super Mario Brothers 2, which was Doki Doki Panic and all that, it feels a lot more like a new step in Mario's history, with new characters and new level designs and everything. It's so fresh. It's so different. I really like that game. I do like it a lot more than the quote unquote actual Super Mario Brothers 2.
Right. I mean, it can even be a surprise to someone who has played maybe all the other games. I mean, all the other games are pretty much, not the same, but the same idea. And this one is so different that it will feel really fresh even playing it today.
Yeah, definitely, because I think that the only game to ever truly have elements of that game is 3D World, with the four characters with different abilities and grabbing and all that.
Sure.
So I think that's the only one. But that game has a huge mark in Mario's history with Shy Guy and Birdo and all
Right.
these villains and characters. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like that game. I do agree that it's super underappreciated, even if it's really famous because it's Mario.
Sure.
Well, my next pick is, again, a very famous game, but there's a twist to it. It's Batman Arkham City. Now, Batman Arkham
Right.
City is probably one of the most famous games of the past generation, with
Uh huh.
It's Batman, it's a great game, everyone's gonna talk about it, so on and so forth.
It
But
is.
I'm talking specifically about Batman Arkham City Art Mode Edition. This is basically the version that they released for Wii U. Now, the reason that I think it's really underappreciated is that it has a lot of features that are really cool, that later Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight would implement some of those things. The Wii U gamepad was a very particular controller, as some of you may know, with the touch screen, the stereo sound, the microphone, the gyro sensor. It basically was this crazy thing. So what they did is, of course you have the map in the screen, you can go through menus, you can select your gadgets, you can interact with your environment, and then what Batman would hear on his radio, you would hear it on your gamepad, the stereo sound, I mean the surround sound of your gamepad. So even if like the radio said like you had the villain behind you and you were listening to him, the surround sound would give the 3D audio of him being behind you or to your left or whatever. So it was really precise, and that was really cool. And also when you would talk to Alfred or Oracle, you would hear it through the gamepad. So it was really cool, really immersive, and I feel like that's a very underappreciated version of the game. I haven't played the remaster for PS4, but at least when it comes to console releases of Arkham City, I think that this is the definitive version. I mean, it does have a little of a silly costume there, but you can always use the classic one, so that's not really a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's definitely something that you should check out. But I will say that if you're not really into those things that you mentioned, some motion controls and things being done on the gamepad, I don't think that this game will be for you. But definitely, if you're into that, maybe some Wii games that did that with a controller and other Wii U games that did this, I think that you definitely appreciate another look at the game in this light.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a reason why the Wii U gamepad was not super popular. But well, what's your next pick?
Well, my next pick is going to be a game that has been pretty famous as of late in the speedrunning community. It's SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. I know, like, people are thinking, how can this game be any good? But I mean, really, this game, you wouldn't imagine how good this game is for a SpongeBob game. It's a 3D platformer, along the lines of Mario Sunshine or something like that. I'm comparing it to something of the era because it's from the GameCube. I don't know if it's on the PlayStation or any other console, but I played on the GameCube. And I don't know, it's this really fun platformer. It has really solid physics, and I don't know about the story. I really don't remember it, but it doesn't matter. The game, it's really solid and fun, and you have different collectibles and different characters to interact and play with. It's a really good game.
I will second you on that one. I remember playing Battle for Bikini Bottom and really liking it. I mean, I haven't played it recently. I'm sure it might be rough around some edges nowadays, but
Sure.
in general, I remember really liking it and really being surprised at how expansive it is and how it like recreated different episodes of the show and in different places, and
Right.
you would go to Sandy's house and you would go to the Krusty Krab and all
Yeah.
these iconic places from the show and have a level based on it, and it was really cool. I definitely agree with you. And playing as Patrick, as Andy, as SpongeBob, yeah, it was a great game, and it was apparently very well received by critics or whatever, because they would reuse that engine a handful of times. I remember, for example,
Right.
the movie game
Yep.
used the same graphics and everything, so
Yep.
they knew they had something special in their hands. back when it came out.
Sure.
So, do you have anything else to add about SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom?
Just that people should check out the speedruns. I mean, people do crazy things with that game.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm surprised about of how, like, how did you even think about this? In many cases, like,
Yeah.
you guys break the game in such fun ways. I mean, makes me feel like a noob sometimes. Anyway, my next entry is Box Boy. And I'm going to plug, so to speak, the trilogy. Now, Box Boy is a beautiful little puzzle platformer for the 3DS with a very minimalistic presentation. It's in black and white, pretty much. It's by HAL Laboratory, known for games like the Kirby series and Super Smash Bros. It's very intuitive to play, honestly. Like, you create little replica boxes of your character, and honestly, it gets really challenging by the end of the game. Like, it's very one of those cases where the presentation it's so cute or whatever, and it deceives you into thinking it's easy.
Right.
I was also surprised because it has a very touching little story by the end of it, and it was like there's some kind of heavy themes of love and sacrifice and stuff like that, and I was like, oh wow, this is in a game with your little white box. The music is very relaxing. I've used it to study and write and everything. Now the sad thing is that Nintendo has apparently wrapped the trilogy up with, calling the last game Bye Bye Box Boy, which is
alright, yeah.
like, yeah, like oh, what a way of wrapping it up, like making it very blatant. But Fast and Furious always calls it the one last ride, whatever.
Yeah.
I want Box Boy to have one last ride on Switch. Anyway, have you played Box Boy?
No, I haven't.
There you go, you should play it.
Sure.
It's an underrated game.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah, and it has an amiibo, so they definitely tried, but, still an eShop game, not super popular.
Right.
Anyway, what's your next entry?
Right, my next entry is going to be a game pretty overshadowed by other similar games made by the same company. And I know some people like it, but some people really don't. I'm talking about Donkey Kong 64. I mean, this game is always mentioned as a shadow of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. And I don't know, this game to me makes some differences that make it a good game on its own. And a game that people should really play if they enjoyed those other games. I mean, it has tons of different collectibles and tons of different replayability value, different characters and weapons, enemies, puzzles. It's a really cool game that people should check out.
Yeah, I didn't know that Donkey Kong 64 was seen that way until until the internet, so to speak.
Right.
Because when I was little, to me, Donkey Kong 64 was on the same breath as Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
I honestly saw them like this series of awesome games that were similar in some ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you're saying, people really seem to be very harsh on that game these days. I mean, I almost don't get it. I mean, how can you hate the game that started the Donkey Kong rap? The DK rap.
Right. I mean, I can see some problems with the game, like forcing you sometimes to replay a game 4 or 5 times where you have already passed or something. But I don't know, the game is too fun for me that I don't care about that stuff. I mean, I could play it again and again and I wouldn't care.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that it gets long on the tooth by the end of it. Where, I'm collecting bananas again. Oh, I'm collecting the blueprints again. Oh, I'm doing this again. I do get that, but no one's telling you to beat a game in one sitting, you guys. You can take your time with these things. You can like get tired of something and come back next week or whatever. Like, I mean, take your leisure. You're not reviewing it or anything, so.
Right.
Or maybe that's the thing. Maybe reviewers say, "Oh, I'm so tired of this thing." By the end of it, that they give that review to people, and people are like, "Oh, it's too much. Let's not play that."
Yeah.
Yeah, and talk about underrated. I really like, for example, the multiplayer of it.
Right. It has really good multiplayer.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about GoldenEye and talk about Conquer, but this has a very solid, rare multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great little game for the N64, and it's one of the few ones that can't make it to Xbox by Rare. You know, the few games that can't make it
Right.
there because of Nintendo, but it's readily available on the Wii U if you guys are interested, for example. And I'm pretty sure that it will be on the Switch at some point. Don't know how, but at some point.
Let's hope.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Anyway, my next game is Four Swords Adventures. Now, Four Swords Adventures is, well, Four Swords in general, like the first one as well, is such a great idea. Like, bring this series that is known for the combat, the enemies, the lore, the exploration, and make it for people. That is such an ambitious idea, in my opinion, because, I mean, it's really easy to mess up, and they didn't. They made a fantastic game with a lot of competition, a lot of cooperation, a lot of diversity in levels. Now, there were some compromises, like they made it a level-based game and all that, but overall, capturing the essence of Zelda in multiplayer, I think is such a great thing. And now I think that this game sold pretty well on the GameCube, but I feel like pretty much no one experienced it like it was meant to, with 4 players, each one with their Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
And it's such a great experience. And it's one that, to this day, I haven't gotten you guys to play it with me, 4 people, because, we're only there's only 3 of us, and you, me, and Carlos. And we need that 4th guy, and we have to get him because this game is great. And it's been years since I played it 4 players, so if you guys out there have any chance, or like you Zelda fans out there that haven't tried it because it's not interesting to you or whatever, because it's so different, that's the point. It's great. It's so...
Yeah, it's really good.
You scream at each other, and, I can already see Carlos killing us and throwing us off a cliff if he could. You can't do that in this game, but if he could, he would.
You can, can't you?
I think that you can.
I thought you could.
When you are, like, sleeping, but I don't remember if you could be, like, sleepy in co-op. Oh, no, you can. You can. I just remembered you can. I think that you press L. Yeah. And that's how they throw you.
Because I think that you have to sometimes throw the other player.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I misremembered that. So, yeah, Carlos is going to probably kill us in that game, too. Just like he does in New Super Mario Brothers and 3D World.
Everything.
So, have you played the Four Sword games?
Yeah, I have.
I mean, I don't know how they couldn't capture this same awesome essence in Triforce Heroes, for example. I do think that Four Swords and Four Swords Adventure are much better than Triforce Heroes. Anyway, what's your next pick? Your final pick, actually, right?
Yeah, right. My final pick is going to be a fairly recent game, and that it's got a lot of hate, and I do understand why it has. But I think that behind all that, there's a really solid game. Talking about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. What can I say that hasn't been said from this game before? The lack of fan favorite characters and the different modes and the visuals not being up to par with current generation stuff. But I think that, I mean, if you ignore all that I know you really shouldn't. There's a really solid game behind there. I mean, they really took. I mean, the gem systems, Infinity Gems or Infinity Stone systems, came back from, I believe it was the first one or whatnot. And in that game, it was really broken, really dumb, really not well applied. And in this game, they really created a nice system around them that really works and that's balanced and that. I mean, there was this at the beginning this glitch or infinite combo that you could do with one of the stones, and they fixed it. I mean, yeah, it's a shame that the other things brought down the core gameplay of this game. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's worth the full price of a AAA game, $60, but maybe if you see it at $20, $30, definitely try and check it out. I mean, it's not all that bad.
Yeah, it's pretty telling that when you were started saying like it's a recent game that got a lot of flag, like oh it's Marvel, right? Like right. I totally agree with you. I think it's a really heartbreaking situation because it was not on the developers. Like the guys that worked
Right.
in balancing the game, they tried their darnest to make the game look decent with the budget that they had, with the time that they had. It was the studio or the publisher that screwed them over. Like, no, these characters
Yeah.
are going to be DLC. The game will have this roster, this amount of characters. These others will be DLC. We will
Yeah.
make it $60. Like the people that are making it have no say. So it's pretty heartbreaking in a way to see such a lost potential because of people that didn't even work on the game. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. It's not worth $60 as it is, but
Right.
maybe if you see it cheaper down the line, which I do think that it's popping out cheaper already, like used or
Yeah, it is.
something. So yeah, definitely it's a game that deserves some kind of attention, and yeah, I mean it's heartbreaking, it's sad because, and it's such a cool team up. I mean, these days Marvel is super popular. It's probably the most popular it's ever been, and to see a fighting game that could have been a huge esports landmark just not do anything, it's sad. And
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, in my pick, like my number one pick is also a Capcom fighting game. So it's a sad trend here, Capcom. My first pick, it's Tatsunoko versus Capcom. It's already one of the best fighting games I've ever played, honestly. I mean, I've had it for a few months, but it's already huge in my opinion. It's great. It has a large, diverse character roster. It has very colorful and appealing designs. The gameplay is very fast-paced. It's actually very similar to Marvel vs. Capcom. And, it only has 3 attack buttons and 1 assist button, so the gameplay is very easy to pick up and play, honestly. Now, the graphics for today in age are very low resolution and polygonal, but in my opinion, they are more appealing than other, more recent Capcom fighting games. You mentioned Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I think that this game looks better than that, in much less powerful hardware. And I also think that it looks much better than Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which, was on the PS3, also much more powerful than the Wii, which is one of the reasons it probably was not very popular. It was a Wii exclusive, the Wii didn't have the best online. It didn't have the best reputation with hardcore gamers. But on the flip side, it's almost like a throwback at this point, because it doesn't have any season passes, it doesn't have cosmetic DLC or, anything like that. It's a very simple and transparent game, and it has a really cool roster, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, it had online when it came out, but since the Wii servers shut down, it doesn't have online anymore. But honestly, a game that old, I don't think would have a very active online scene, so I don't know how much of a loss that is at this point. Anyway, what's your experience with Tatsunoko vs. Capcom?
It's definitely a great game. I mean, I think it was doomed from the start being released on the Wii. Not because the Wii was a bad console or anything, but because people didn't really relate the Wii or Nintendo in general with fighting games, traditional fighting games. So yeah, maybe fighting game fans were not going to just buy a Wii for this game. I think that if I don't know, maybe if it was re-released on the Switch today, it would do much better now. Now that I don't know, peripherals are USB and there's the aspect that you could take it anywhere, and there's a lot of different fighting games on the Switch now. So I think that they should think about re-releasing this game, especially because recently people have been picking it up and making custom servers for the PC and whatnot. I think, yeah, this game deserves a re-release.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you were the one that showed me videos of the competitive scene of this game. Like people emulating it and, making high resolution emulations of it on Dolphin and whatnot. I was honestly surprised. Like, I bought this game used a couple months ago thinking, hey, I've heard good things, why not? And, it's suddenly one of the best fighting games I've ever played. And like you showed me in those videos, people are very passionate about this game, so it's really reminding me of Millie with the fan demand of an HD re-release with online and everything.
Right.
I definitely think that it deserves a second chance in the spotlight. Even more so than something like Street Fighter Cross Tekken, because I think that game had a lot of issues. Like maybe outside of the gameplay itself, but Tatsunoko, like I play it and it's like there's nothing wrong with this game.
Right, I mean,
it's just that it was on the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an obscure series or an obscure company for us here in America. Tatsunoko. I think that they are most famous for Speed Racer here.
No idea.
So yeah, I mean, it had a few things that I understand why it didn't succeed, but that makes it all the more worthy of talking about here. Do you have anything else to add about these games that we've discussed today?
No, I mean, I really think people should check them out and should tell us about their underrated games, because there's a ton of games in history that have been, happening things like this that are put on a console that, people don't want to buy, or it's not related with the genre or something. So yeah, tell us about your underrated games.
Yeah, definitely, you guys. We're very interested in having this conversation because I love discovering games like this. I discovered last year a game called Psychonauts, and it's suddenly a fantastic 3D platformer that I would have probably liked to play it when it was newer. Please let us know in the comments below. Let's keep this underrated classics ball rolling. So yeah, make sure to like this video and subscribe to us for more content. This has been Paco Treviño from TVGamers, and as always, I was joined by Laura Chapa.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Until next time, bye bye guys.